and welcome to Time with Dr. Harris. My spirit has been feeling so low because so many teenagers are committing suicide. So I decided to do a podcast on that because there might have been someone you know, or someone that's been in your family, someone that you know someone who committed suicide. I love young people. I mean, I love them. And it saddens me that they would feel like they're they're wanting to die. And if you notice I have dying to live, do you really want to die or just want the pain to go away? You have to look at, do they really want to die? Or the things that they're feeling or they're suffering through, they don't want that to go away. And we always think of death being the ultimate to keep us from the pain that we feel. So I want you to take a minute to look at that. Dying to live. Teen suicide. And my question to the teens, do you really want to die or just want the pain to go away? So I want you to come with me. Seriously, I want you to come with me and I want you to take this podcast very serious. Okay? Suicide. When a suicide occurs, people want to know, why do teens commit suicide? Some people consider their teen years the happiest years of their lives. So a teen suicide just doesn't make sense to them. But teens can suffer real pain and be in terrible situations, and these can cause teen suicide. Teen suicide rates are alarming and have been going on up in recent years. They're going up. Teen suicide statistics may shed light onto why this is and how into how we can turn the tide on teen suicide. Remember, teen suicide does not normally happen without warning. We have the power to use teen suicide facts to stop teen suicide. So I don't want you to feel hopeless and helpless. Well, if you look at this child right here, it makes you want to take her and just hold her and to be able to say, how can I help you? Suicide rates among teens and young adults by Sandy Cohen. Suicide is the second, hear me, the second leading cause of death among people aged 15 to 24. And you'll see later on it's even lower than that. In the US, nearly 20% of high school students report serious thoughts of suicide, and 9% have made an attempt to take their lives, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Even thinking about it. Despite the dramatic increase, the actual number of teens with suicide ingestion continues to be much higher than preteens, Sheridan said. Suicide rate is spiking upwards in pre-adolescent children. And you'll see in the reports later that it started at age 10. Tuesday, March 15, 2022, Health Day News says in the past 2 decades, a growing number of preteens have been taking medicines or other chemicals as a way to end their life, new research warns. I want you to hear this story.
Her experience to try to help others.
When he died, it was a complete shock to all of us here in our community.
For Ann Daigle, her son's death was unthinkable. At just 19, Brian Daigle died by suicide while he was away at college in 2011. But she also learned her son was part of a startling trend. Suicides among people ages 10 to 24 have jumped by more than 50% since 2000.
I wish I had known then what I know now. Maybe I would have treated him very differently.
A recent CDC report shows the suicide rate for that age group was relatively steady from 2000 to 2007. But since 2007, that rate has been on the rise. That growth has been even faster since 2013. This trend shows that since 2011, the suicide rate has been higher than the homicide rate for that age group. This decade, only accidental injuries have caused more deaths. Connecticut has seen a less dramatic rise. According to the Office of Medical Examiners, during that same time period, it went from 31 suicides annually to 39. Experts haven't been able to figure out the reason for this increase, but they say it's a warning sign for parents.
Sometimes what we think might just be typical teenage blues might be something more.
Dr. Laura Saunders is Assistant Director of Psychology at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living. She says parents should be on the lookout for changes in their children's behavior. If you have concerns, the best way to approach someone is to ask. Saunders says be direct, including using words like suicide in the conversation.
Ask our kids what's going on. They don't always tell us, but we need to be an open conduit.
Daigle has been trying to change stigmas and encourage teens to be open. For the last 5 years, she's run the Brian Daigle Foundation. Part of the foundation's mission is suicide prevention. Its Lax to Live event uses high school lacrosse as a way to teach students about mental health. Mike Savino, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Now, if you are worried about a loved one, you can call 1-800-SUICIDE. We have information on more services right now on the Channel 3 app.
I really don't want us to close this off and think, oh, that can happen to my child, or that's too far away from me. Whether it's in your church, your job, it doesn't matter where you are. You're either a mother, you're a grandmother, you're an aunt, you're a cousin. I want you to think about, I know that it made me think about my children, grandchildren, and my thoughts. I started praying, because one of the things that we don't really realize is what's going on in our young people's minds. And there are so many times they're going through things that we are not aware of, and they might not feel they can tell us, so we would understand. But we want them to know that we are there for them. Teen suicide facts. Teen suicide facts indicate that while girls are more likely, far more likely than boys to attempt suicide, boys are 4 3/4 times more likely to die by suicide than girls. This is likely due to the fact that boys pick far more lethal means of suicide than girls. For example, a boy may seek out a firearm for suicide, while girls are more likely to try to poison herself. But girls are still far more likely to attempt. But when you think about men or even males, if they're going to do it, they're going to be more aggressive about it. And most of my children and grandchildren are boys and young men. And I want them to feel that they can go to their parents or someone to be able to talk about how they feel. And so I want you to look at and listen to what I'm trying to show you. I want you to hear, and I want you to take this serious. I'm doing this podcast because it's that serious, okay? Facts about teen suicide. Published by the AAS indicate that the following are major risk factors for teen suicide: mental illness, substance abuse, firearms in the household, previous suicide attempts, non-suicidal self-injury, self-harm, exposure to the suicide of someone close to the teen, low self-esteem. I'm gonna read that again. I want you to think about, okay? Mental illness, substance abuse, firearms in the household, previous suicide attempts, non-suicidal self-injury, self-harm, exposure to the suicide of someone close to the teen, or low self-esteem. While not indicated by the AAS as a main risk factor for suicide, it's worth noting that lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are 4 times more likely than their straight peers to attempt suicide. Most teens who have been interviewed, first of all, the subject is, why do teens commit suicide? And we're starting with emotional causes, okay? Most teens who have been interviewed after a suicide attempt say that what caused teen suicide are feelings, now listen, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. Suicidal teens often feel like they are in situations that have no solutions. Can you imagine feeling like there is no solution for how I feel? The teens can see no way out but death. The teens feel like they have no control to change their situation. And how sad that is that when you feel hopeless, any of us, when we feel helpless, we feel there's no way out. So you can imagine you're young feeling that way, and you're surrounded by adults who are supposed to love and care for you, that you should be able to trust and feel safe. But they don't feel that way. Other emotional teen suicide causes stem from trying to escape feelings of pain, rejection, hurt, being unloved, victimization, or loss. Teens may feel like their feelings are unbearable, it will never end. So the only way to escape is suicide. I remember having a teen client, this was years and years ago, who was heavy into drugs. And she said to me that for me to stop using drugs, for me to feel the pain, I cannot allow myself to feel that kind of pain. When you think about something, doesn't it hurt? Doesn't something inside of you feel like, wow, when somebody is feeling that kind of pain? Teens may also be afraid of disappointing others or feel like they are a burden to others, such as their parents. And these can be additional causes of teen suicide. So I want you to take a minute to look at what was written and what is being said. Feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. They have no solution, no way out. The only way is death. They want to escape the feeling of pain and rejection and hurt. Doesn't that something inside of you make you want to cry when you think of these young people and as getting as young as 10 feeling that way? Being unloved, victimization, or lost. Feelings are unbearable and will never end. These feelings that they feel are never end. So they want to escape. That's a lot of pain, guys. You think about that. That's a lot of pain, even as an adult, but even for a little one. These young teenagers who we're supposed to be able to cover, and they should be able to feel protected by us. Teen suicide causes, environmental causes. The first thing we did was emotional. Now we'll do an environmental. Situations often drive the emotional causes of suicide. Bullying, are you listening? Bullying, cyberbullying, abuse, a detrimental home life, loss of a loved one, or even a breakup can be contributing cause of teen suicide. Now, I know they're dating younger. I mean, elementary school. I mean, what do you know? How can you even think of that and deal with that kind of emotion? Think of the emotions we deal with as adults, let alone the emotions of a relationship. Often, many of these environmental factors occur together to cause suicide feelings and behavior. You know, these kids who are having relationships so young, and relationships cause a lot of emotions. And you think about them experiencing that kind of emotion so young. What in the world do you do with that? What do you do with that kind of emotion? And you're hurting. Instead of, this is a time when you should be enjoying life, having fun, being with your friends, being in sports or whatever it is. Forgive me. I love young people, and it hurts me that at such a young age that they're feeling that kind of pain and hurt. Bullying. Now, you know, I've always had problems with bullies. I see bullies as just cowards. Just cowards. Because you notice that bullies always have to have somebody around. They can't do it on their own, and they themselves are hurting. That's why they're bullying. It is someone who takes advantage of another individual that he or she perceives as more vulnerable. That's the key. Why would I want to pick on somebody who's more vulnerable? Why does that make me feel so great? What does it make me feel so great that somebody who's vulnerable, that I can bully them? You have to look at a person like that and say, what's really going on with them? And what kind of help do they need? The goal is to gain control over the victim or over the bully's social group. This type of behavior occurs in all ages, and in all social groups, in all ages, and all social groups, in all ages, and all social groups. most adults, if they think about it, have experienced bullying too. Whether it's on your job, at home, with friends. I don't understand how friends could say they're friends and they're not treating you right. But we stay in those relationships. There are different types of bullies. Bullying can involve direct attacks, such as hitting, listen, threatening or intimidating, maliciously teasing and taunting, name calling, making sexual remarks, and stealing or damaging belongings, or more subtle indirect attacks, such as spreading rumors or encouraging others to reject or exclude you. Now, stay with me for a minute, okay? What's inside a person that makes them want to hurt another person? Whether it is verbally, physically, emotionally. You got to look at that person that wants to do that to you and see there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. It's not okay. And then they sometimes call them the popular. What's popular about someone who's insecure themselves and feel like for them to feel secure, feel good and great, they got to down you? I want you to think about that. I don't think we think about this enough. I really don't think we think about this enough. But I'm doing this podcast because I want you to think about it. I want us to take these young people and protect them and cover them and pray for them and nurture them and provide for them a safe place and to be open to listen to them and don't blow it off. Do not blow it off. Here's another story I want you to listen to.
A night of sorrow in Southern California. Friends and family mourning the loss of 13-year-old Rosalie Avila. The teen took her own life after being relentlessly bullied at school.
I woke up and there was screaming, and I had to find my daughter hanging in her room.
Rosalie left behind a letter apologizing, calling herself ugly and a loser. Suicide is now one of the leading causes of death among young people. Nearly 6,000 took their own lives in 2015. Child therapist Cheryl Ziegler says bullying is an epidemic.
What we're seeing is that this has a tremendous effect on the fragile, growing brain of a child.
It's particularly dire in Colorado, where teen suicides have doubled over the last 10 years.
It's a nightmare for any mother.
In Aurora, the parents of Ashanti Davis are heartbroken. They say their daughter took her own life after being bullied. She was just 10 years old.
We just want parents to know that you got to be in your children's life, because this is reality now. We got to bury our baby.
State Representative Daphne Michelson-Janae is one of several Colorado lawmakers exploring legislation to combat the problem.
This is a problem. It is real. It is an issue, and we have a responsibility as a community to stop it.
A plea for awareness to prevent another night like this. Steve Patterson, NBC News, Los Angeles.
At the beginning, there was a priest that said 5 years old to 24. 5 to 24. Now, most of them say you're 10 to 24, but that one that I had on there said 5 to 24. And when you think about that, it's like 5-year-old. I know myself as a counselor that the trauma and abuse that kids are going through is horrendous. It's horrendous. And I'm just asking us to be sensitive and protective, more protective than what we're doing, okay? And when you see that parent crying, can you imagine them thinking, my 10-year-old? 10! Wanting to die? It makes you want to cry. The impact of bullying. Bullying can have a wide ranging impact on teens, from victims to those who witness bullying, to the bullies themselves, and effect each one will have in adulthood. Bullying can lead teenagers to feel intense, anxious, and afraid. I want you to look at that picture. Don't stop looking at that picture. It can affect their concentration in school and can lead them to avoid school in some cases. If bullying continues for some time, it can begin to affect teen self-esteem and feelings of self-worth. Self-esteem and self-worth is a big deal even among older people. Increase their social isolation, leading them to become withdrawn and depressed, anxious and insecure. Self-worth. They don't think that no one cares. And the things that people say to them. This is all over this person's body. Some says slow, fat, hurt. I mean, all kind of little things are on here that they're wearing. Now, take that and put that inside them feeling that way, what you're seeing on the outside. And if your child is isolating themselves and being withdrawn and depressed, I always tell parents, pay attention when there's a change, in your child. Let's say they were always happy-go-lucky, and all of a sudden they're withdrawn and depressed. Don't ignore that. Please do not ignore that. If there's a change in the way your child's acting, something is going on. In extreme cases, bullying can be devastating for teens with long-term consequences. A lot of times when I'm dealing with adults, I'm dealing with a lot of things that took place when they were younger. When there is a long-term consequence of things that we go through. Some teens feel compelled to take drastic measures, such as carrying weapons for protection or seeking violent revenge. Others in desperation even consider suicide. Researchers have found that years later, long after the bullying has stopped, adults who were bullied as teens have higher level of depression and poorer self-esteem than other adults. Now, I really want you to take time to think about that, because I know that some of you understand this, and some of you have these feelings that you've experienced, whatever it may be, when you were younger, that still affects you as adults. You know that, because it is long-lasting effect. Most of the things that we experience and feel and hurt and pain came when we were younger, the trauma, and it continues in relationships. So think about your sons and your daughters and your grandchildren, your nieces and nephews. I want you to think about them, okay? Bullying can also affect those teens who witness bullying. In one study of junior high and high school students, over 88% said they had witnessed bullying in their schools. Teens who witness bullying can feel guilty or helpless for not standing up to a bully on behalf of a classmate or friend, or for not reporting the incident to someone who could help. They may experience even greater guilt if they are drawn into bullying by pressure from their peers. Some teens deal with these feelings of guilt by blaming the victim and decide that he or she deserved the abuse. Teens sometimes also feel compelled to end a friendship or avoid being seen with the bullied teen to avoid losing status or being targeted. Think about it. Take time and think about it. Take time and think about it, please. Which teens are more likely to become bullied? While many people believe bullies act tough in order to hide feelings of insecurity and self-loathing, in fact, bullies tend to be confident with high self-esteem. Now, I have a little problem with that little piece right there, because if you feel confident, have high self-esteem, why do you feel the need to hurt somebody else? But that's the way it seems, but that's not the truth. Because why do I want to hurt you if I feel good about myself? If anything, I should be using my confidence and high self-esteem to encourage you and support you. They are generally physically aggressive with pro-violence attitudes. Now listen to this. And are typically hot-tempered easily angered, and impulsive with a low tolerance of frustration. That's what I use. More of that. Physically aggressive with pro-violence attitudes and are typically hot-tempered, easily angered, and impulsive with a low tolerance of frustration. Physically aggressive with pro-violence attitudes and are typically hot-tempered, easily angered, and impulsive with a low tolerance of frustration. I know you guys know people like this, whether it's teens or people in your own relationships or family. You already know people like this. Bullies have a strong need to dominate others and usually have little empathy for their targets. Male bullies are often physically bigger and stronger than their peers. Now, I want you to think about that. I need for you to think about that. So why is so much going on, and why are we doing more about it? Because we see this all the time. We hear this all the time, but we still don't take it serious. Bullies tend to get in trouble more often and to dislike and do more poorly in school than teens who do not bully others. They're also more likely to fight, drink, and smoke than their peers. I already know. You guys already know a bunch of people like this, a bunch of teens, family members, whatever. So now, if they're going around doing this and they're doing it to someone else, I want you to see how the someone else that they're doing it to feel, to the point where a child would want to commit suicide. That's some trauma right there. That's like so much attacking to who I am and in my spirit and to whom I as a person, that I'm worth nothing for someone to treat me like that. Teens who come from homes with parents provide little emotional support for their children. Are you listening? Teens who come from homes where parents provide little emotional support for their children, fail to monitor their activities. I'm like, when I see kids do all kinds of things, I mean, where are the parents? Or have little involvement in their lives, are at greater risk for engaging in bullying behavior. Where are we? Parents' discipline styles are also related to bullying behavior. An extremely permissive or excessively harsh approach to discipline can increase the risk of teenage bullying. Why? Why does that do that? Because you're hurting them and they want to hurt somebody else for the emotion that they feel. And you're teaching them that and training them that this is how we take it on our anger, we take it on you. So then they take their anger on someone else. Surprisingly, bullies appear to have little difficulty in making friends. Their friends typically share their pro-violent attitude. Now hear this. Their friends typically share their pro-violent attitudes and problem behaviors, such as drinking and smoking, and may be involved in bullying as well. Wow, what a group of friends, huh? These friends are often followers who do not initiate bullying but participate in it. As mentioned above, some teenagers not only bully others, but are also the targets of bullying themselves. Like other bullies, they tend to do poorly in school and engage in a number of problem behaviors. They also tend to be socially isolated with few friends and poor relations with their classmates. Think about it. What could we do with these guys who we're supposed to be trained to be great leaders? And we're just letting them go doing whatever they want to do. Somebody cry out, somebody do something. Take these young people and minister to them and disciple them and make them feel safe and secure and love on them. Somebody. Let's do it together, okay, guys? Cyberbullying. I know you guys have heard of that. That's huge. While there is much still to learn about the complex problems of bullying and suicide in youth, what is clear is that acts of bullying and suicide are linked. Bullying can happen in person, or bullying can happen via technology, which is known as cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can be just as devastating as in-person bullying. Bullying and cyberbullying are known to negatively impact mental health and generally well-being long-term. This is true for those who bully, those who are the targets of bullies, and even bystanders. Okay, now, help me out. Your child is having cyberbullying, which takes place on computers. I'll show you that, phones and all that kind of stuff. But they still have these things in their possessions. That continues now. Okay, now I'm at school, now I'm at home. It's all over the place. Parents, where are you? Hear me, where are you? How involved are you in your child's life? Huh? Look at this picture, the link between bullying and suicide. Look at some of the words that these children have to deal with. Freak, nerd, stupid, ugly, loser. It wrenches my heart for a child to have to go through that. We know that bullying behavior, both by the bully and target, is linked to suicidal behavior, be it attempts, ideation, or completion. That's why I had to do this podcast. It's hurting my heart to know that it's on the uprise and it's increasing, and it's the second leading cause of death for young people. This means that youth involved in bullying are more likely to report suicidal behavior than those who aren't. It is important to note, though, that we do not know that bullying causes suicide behavior, and most people involved in bullying do not engage in suicide-related behavior. But they're involved in something. How are they dealing with it? What other means are they using? Cutting, belittling, what other things can do with the pain? This is all connected to pain, guys. All connected to pain. Bullying suicide stories. Many causes of bullying and suicide or cyberbullying and suicide have led to national or even international attention. The Ryan Hollingen bullying suicide story was one such case. Early concerns about Ryan's speech, language, and motor skills development led to him receiving special education services from preschool through the 4th grade. Ryan's academic and physical struggles made him the regular target of a particular bully at school between the 5th and 7th grade. In February 2003, a fight between Ryan and the bully not only ended the harassment at school, but led to a supposed friendship. Keep listening. However, after Ryan shared an embarrassing personal story, the newly found friend returned to being a bully and used the information to start a rumor that Ryan was gay. The taunting continued into the summer of 2003. Although Ryan thought that he had struck a friendship with a pretty popular girl through AOL instant messaging, instead, he later learned that the girl and her friends thought it would be funny to make Ryan think the girl liked him and used it to have him share more personal embarrassing material, which was copied and pasted into AIM exchange with her friends. The thought of that just, does it hurt you? How do you feel? What kind of emotions are you feeling right now? Can you imagine all the things that you've been through in your life, sharing that with someone and they took it and abused it? Because 1 out of 3 people that you know have been sexually abused. That's a lot of people that you know. And someone comes out to tell you, because they trusted you, be friends with you, all they've been through, and it's there's more than you can imagine. And then you take that information and continue to abuse that person. Think about it. Keep thinking. I'm trying to get you to see what I'm talking about. bullying suicide story continues. On October 7, 2003, Ryan hanged himself in the family bathroom. Was he devastated? Think about the story. And is he devastated? Hung himself. When a person hangs himself, they're not playing. They mean to die. In the family bathroom. After his son's death, Giant discovered a folder filled with Ames exchanges throughout that summer that made him realize that technology was being utilized as weapons far more effective in reaching than the simple ones we had as kids. Since this is such an uprise, why aren't we doing more? How serious are we taking this and what are we doing? Especially the body of Christ. Texas report. Teen suicide has become an epidemic in Texas. It is now the second most prevalent cause of death for Texas. Adolescents passing homicide for the first time. Homicide. While most teen suicides involve depression, anxiety, drug or alcohol abuse, relationship struggle, or sexual or physical abuse, Texas communities are experiencing a recent rash of suicide caused by bullying and cyberbullying above homicide. Bullies are using online forums to terrorize their classmates without fear of punishment. Now, we looked at earlier the type of personalities that are doing that and behaviors. We're surrounded by these people who are acting out like that. They're all out of control. Parents, what are we doing? Aunts and uncles, what are we doing? Grandparents, what are we doing? So now they can't get you in person, so now they got to use the internet. Without fear of punishment. And these kids are committing suicide. Across the United States today, more than 1/3 of teens admit they have been cyberbullied or know someone who has, the Dallas Morning News reports. And it's even more so today. I hope that you're starting to feel what I feel, or even more so. Stories of bully-induced teen suicides in Texas are becoming commonplace. Listen to this. This is in Texas, okay? In February, Devin Rayner, 15, a freshman at Rogers High School and active at First Baptist Church of Rogers, shot and killed himself after being bullied at school. Does anybody besides me have tears yet? In October, a Highburnfield teen, Natalie Rodriguez, 15, took an overdose of pills that resulted in her death. The 8th grader at Havenville Middle School had been bullied ruthlessly online in that school. Where do I escape? In November, Brandy Vela, 18, a student at Texas City High School, shot and killed herself after months of enduring cyberbullying. Now, when you think about how these people are killing themselves, remember it started, I put, do you really want to die? Or do you want the pain to stop? Do these kids really want to die or they want the pain to stop? And they feel hopeless, remember, helpless. There's no place to go. It's not going to stop. 90 days later, in February, a second teen girl at Texas City High School killed herself. Bailey Lundy, 15, a member of Greater Barberton Chapel Baptist Church, hung herself in a nearby park. Like Brandy, Bailey had endured relentless cyberbullying from school classmates. How are you guys feeling? Do you feel like we can't keep letting this happen without us getting involved somehow? Is it just me? Or do you feel that way? Are you starting to see the importance of the information I'm giving you? Now look at that. Ugly, skank, hoe, stupid, idiot, or gross, fat. When we're when you're teenagers, your identification is huge at that time. Identifying who are you, and your self-esteem. So if somebody's terrorizing you like this, all it's doing is add on to what you're already feeling. Cyberbullying is when a child, preteen or teen, is tormented, threatened, harassed, humiliated, embarrassed, or targeted by another child, preteen or teen, using electronic technology such as cell phones, computer and tablet, using social media sites, text messages, chat, and websites. Come on, we got kids having cells young. And all the stuff is going on. How many positive things is really happening on their tablets and computers or phone? That's up to you, parents, to find out. This type of bullying especially is difficult for teens because it can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You see that girl? Do you see her? Do you really see her? Imagine how she feels. 24 hours a day, somebody, and 7 days a week, somebody say. Women who have been through abuse in their homes, who've experienced that, you can relate to someone saying negative things to you all the time, never having kind words to say to you. So take that as a child experiencing that. Messages and images can be posted anonymously and distributed quickly and widely. Messages and images cannot be deleted easily after posting, cannot be deleted. So it's out there. It's just out there. So who in the world thinks that I'm not like this? The thing about it is, parents, if we were to love and nurture our children when they're young, let them know that they're special and speak life to them, they might not be so open to so much of this. I don't know. But all I'm saying is I'm hoping this is a wake-up call for some people. In the body of Christ, I am talking to you too. Suicide prevention in the church. How churches can help prevent teen suicide. While some teen suicides are impossible to prevent, most are believed to be preventable. Congregations can be instrumental in efforts to help prevent teen suicide and cyberbullying within their communities. Here are some suggestions. Take opportunities to preach and teach from the pulpit and in Bible study classes on the value of God-created life, the effects of cyberbullying, and the tragedy of teen suicide. Make your church aware and put something together to help. Build strong children and youth programs that create safe and welcoming environment for the church young people to meet, talk, learn, and fellowship. But let's talk about that for just a second, because we don't need them to be able to experience that in the youth program too. Because if kids have these negative attitudes, wherever they're going to go, they're going to create and hurt somebody with their mouth or whatever. So so you youth pastors or pastors, you have to make sure this is not going on with these kids in your church too. Are you hearing me? Encourage your youth to talk about cyberbullying, pray with and for your young people. Let them know you matter. Your mistakes do not define you. You are worthy of love. Don't give up. This is the kind of stuff we can do as believers. Let them know that you matter. Whew. Anybody starting to feel the sensitivity that is needed to feel concerning our children. Anyone. Help continues. Invite Christian professionals to speak to your congregation, offering classes to build healthy family relationships and seminars dealing with depression, cyberbullying, teen suicide, etc. Require pastors of children, youth to take mental health first aid training. This is one of my passions. They need to have mental health first aid training. Teach them to know what's happening among their young people, to recognize the signs of cyberbullying, depression, and potential teen suicide, and to respond appropriately. Create a network and update list of trusted mental health professionals and resources for immediate referral. Why are we leaving our kids unattended? For some reason, I don't know where you get this from, that after they become a certain age, you let them go and do whatever they want. They still need to be covered and protected and accounted for. Know what your children are doing and who they're hanging out with. What they're watching, what they're doing. Suicide warning signs. Every day in our nation, 5,240 young people in grades 7 to 12 attempt suicide. Every day in our nation, 5,240 young people in grades 7 to 12 attempt suicide. Studies show 4 out of 5 teens who attempt suicide have given clear warning signs. We're ignoring it. You're giving a sign, but we're ignoring it. What are we doing? Why are we so busy that we're ignoring those things? What's more important than our children? I'm just saying. Take action when a child or teen endures bullying and or cyberbullying, expresses suicidal thoughts, show increased irritability, loss of concentration or motivation, withdraws from family and friends, experience a drop in grades. Are you hearing this? I want you to take time to listen to this. Is unable to sleep or eat, loses interest in personal appearance and favorite activities, shows signs of depression. 1 in every 11 teens will develop depression. That's a lot of teens. Abuses alcohol and drugs, is involved in abusive dating relationships, frequently run away or is arrested, incarcerated, loses family members or experiences problems with parents, has an unplanned pregnancy, shows impulsive, aggressive behavior, and frequent expression of rage. Let's say this again. I'm gonna take my time. Take action, people, when a child or teen that endures bullying and or cyberbullying, expresses suicidal thoughts, shows increased irritability, loss of concentration or motivation, withdraws from family and friends, experience a drop in grades. Remember, I told you, if there's any kind of change in anywhere, pay attention. Is unable to sleep and or eat, loses interest in personal appearance and favorite activities, shows signs of depression. 1 in every 11 teens will develop depression. Abuses alcohol and drugs, is involved in abusive dating relationships, frequently runs away or is arrested and incarcerated, loses family members or experiences problems with parents, has an unplanned pregnancy, shows impulsive, aggressive behavior, and frequent expression of rage. Now, you can always go back and look at this again, but I'm asking you to do something about all this, okay? Responding to potential suicide. If someone mentions or shows the signs of suicide, do not leave the person alone. Remove firearms, medication, other objects that could be used in a suicide attempt. Call the police or the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Take him or her to an emergency room or seek help from a mental health professional. Just don't sit there and do nothing. Do something. You know, when we come together as a family or come together as a community, there's so much strength in that. So much. So when you're doing that and you say, I need help, well, this is what's going on in my family. This is somebody I know about, and come together as a community, as a family. There's so much Just so much prevention that we can do. Abuse. These are some reasons why people might want to commit suicide, okay? Abuse is defined as any action that intentionally harms or injures another person. In short, someone who purposely harms another in any way is committing abuse. There are many kinds of abuse encountered by adults, including physical abuse, psychological abuse, rape, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, elder abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, and emotional abuse. Abuse is abuse that we can't kick aside and say, oh no, it's not a big deal. It's not all that. Yes, it is. Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Ethan felt like there was no point going on with life. Things have been tough since his mom died. His dad was working 2 jobs and seemed frazzled and angry most of the time. Whenever he and Ethan talked, it usually ended in yelling. Ethan had just found out he'd failed a math test, and he was afraid of how mad and disappointed his dad would be. In the past, he always talked things over with his girlfriend, the only person who seemed to understand, but they'd broken up the week before, and now Ethan felt he had nowhere to turn. Now think about this, this is a teenager. Ethan later went on to seek out his dad's gun with which to attempt to take his life. So he can't find refuge at home. He gets himself emotionally involved with a young lady or teen or whatever, and then she breaks up with him. He has nobody that he can feel comfort and hope from. As in the above example, it's typical that many factors, both emotional and environmental, contribute to the cause of teen suicide or teen suicide attempt. Remember, I gave examples emotional, the other is environmental. Mental illness is another cause of teen suicide. While all the above are driving factors of teen suicide, often the underlying issue is one of mental illness. Most teens who attempt suicide do so because of depression, bipolar disorder, or borderline personality disorder. And I'm going to break that down later, okay? These disorders amplify the pain a teen may feel. It's because of this that any suicidal teen should be treated by a medical professional. Now, as a counselor, I know that those things are happening, but there's always a root to why you're feeling that way. And I try to get to the root. Let's talk about depression. Depression, sadness, emptiness, a depressed mood, lack of interest or enjoyment in activities previously found pleasurable, reduced or increased need for sleep, energy, reduced or increased appetite, difficulty in concentrating, paying attention, making decisions, thoughts of harming oneself or others. Depression. Bipolar. Bipolar disorder is characterized by periods of highly elevated or irritated mood and energy, known as manic or hypomanic moods, depending on their severity. These alternate with periods of very deep, profound, low mood and energy, known as depressed moods. So if you see this picture right here, one side they're smiling, the other side they're sad. Symptoms of depression can co-occur at the same time or in the same place, alongside the symptoms of mania or hypermania, and these are known as mixed moods. You're up or you're down. It's also possible to have periods of time where few, if any, symptoms are present, and these are known as euphemic moods. A mood that makes the following criteria is known as an episode. So that's the reason why it's not going on all the time. It's an episode. I try to go deeper into this bipolar with my students or in counseling. Border personality disorder is another one. Borderline personality disorder is severe mental illness in which an individual shows a long-term and conscious pattern of unstable moods and emotions. In other words, the individual cannot properly regulate his or her emotions, resulting in an inner experience that causes impulsive behaviors and chaotic interpersonal relationships. Borderline personality disorder relationships. Cannot properly regulate his or her emotions. Exactly what is borderline personality disorder? To effectively answer the question, what is borderline personality disorder? You need to understand the inner emotional experience of the borderline personality. Think of it as an emotional dysregulation when an air conditioning system is having problems. It may make your home too hot 1 minute and too cold the next. The temperature regulator within the air conditioning unit clearly has issues if this is happening. Borderline personality disorder is kind of like that when it comes to regulation of emotions. When you have borderline personality disorder, you have incredibly intense emotions and may show a lack of regard for personal safety. This reckless regarding personal safety may manifest in the form of self-harm, which is cunning, promiscuity, promiscuous sex, just having sex with different people at different times, and suicidal ideation. You will also have issues with identity and self-image, and your sense of self may change from one day or even one moment to the next. For instance, sometimes you may view yourself as evil, other times you may feel as if you don't exist. This unstable self-image makes you impulsive and erratic, causing frequent changes in jobs, relationships, personal values, and goals. Just imagine, some people marry this or in marriages like this. How living with borderline personality disorder impacts your life? If you look at this picture, look at this picture closely. See how the other side, the person is yelling and screaming? Do you see that? I want you to look at that. Take your time and look at that. Living with borderline personality disorder isn't easy. It's common to feel helpless when dealing with the intense emotions, emptiness, anger, and other symptoms of the disorder. The symptoms of borderline personality disorder can impact every aspect of your life. But even with the suffering and chaos this condition causes, many people learn ways to cope and increase quality of life. You've probably been living with borderline personality disorder since adolescence or early adulthood and can see that it has affected every part of your life. Every part of your life. So these are some of the things that teens may be experiencing that they don't want to continue to experience, that might cause them to want to commit suicide, okay? Why teens commit suicide? What's important to remember is that teens attempt or commit suicide not because of a desire to die. That's the reason why I said they don't want to die, they just want the pain to stop. But rather than attempt to escape a bad situation and or painful feelings. Dying to live. I remember when I was going to do this podcast and I was before the Lord, and that part of what I wrote, do you really want to die? You want the pain to go away? Is what the Holy Spirit gave me. It's rare that only a single event leads to suicide. This means that by helping a teen turn around a bad situation, or by teaching her or him how better to deal with a painful feeling, we can defeat the cause of teen suicide. This means that by helping a teen turn around a bad situation, or by teaching her or him how better to deal with painful feelings, we can defeat the cause of suicide. Speak openly about suicide. A suicide leaves survivors, families, and friends who deeply love the deceased. Many people don't know what to say to survivors. Suicide is a taboo topic in our culture and churches, and that's so true. It's not a conversation we normally talk about. Most survivors of suicide are abandoned to work through their grief, while friends and family remain silent, whispering behind their backs, but completely avoiding the topic in their presence. Much of this reaction is understandable. We hesitate to use the word suicide, so we speak in hushed tones, sharing vague details, hoping to change harsh reality through ambiguity. Excuse me, then I saying that right. Okay. Suicide is painful, awkward, and difficult to talk about, but avoidance doesn't change reality. In my experience, suicide survivors are hungry to talk through the detail once they sense you will be a compassionate presence. Let them talk. Ministers ought not to avoid the topic with grieving families because it makes us uncomfortable. Suicide is uncomfortable to talk about, but for the sake of those you serve, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. With the family's permission, talk openly about what happened with others. Remove the stigma of suicide by addressing it boldly, lovingly, and prophetically. Number two, remember the emotions are complex. When people die from suicide, their surviving families and friends can feel a bewildering range of emotions. Sadness and pain are common in all grieving, but with suicide, less socially acceptable emotions can be just as strong. Experiencing these emotions is unpleasant for suicide survivors and hard for us as the listener to hear. Survivors may feel great anger. How could my loved one take his or her own life? True, suicide is not really a choice, but the result of deep anguish and oftentimes mental illness. Still, we let survivors be angry, help them acknowledge and express their anger safely and without judgment. Many ministers are surprised when survivors express a deep sense of relief. Perhaps their loved one battled mental illness for a long time. That struggle was likely marked with times of success and relapse, emotional and financial struggle, and relational difficulties. Repeated suicide attempts may precede the final successful attempt. Why should we be surprised when survivors express relief? The roller coaster has stopped, and survivors can feel relief that their loved one's pain is ended, but they may even feel a sense of personal relief that the ruthless up and down of mental illness has ceased. They don't want to feel relief, but feeling, especially unpleasant ones, do not come and go at our bidding. Ministers must grant to survivors the liberty to feel unpleasant emotions without being censored or fixed. As we continue, when we deprive a suicide survivor of a safe space to talk through difficult feelings, the grief stagnates. Survivors limp along, never fully healing, never fully returning to life. The grief associated with suicide is complex grief that may include crippling grief and shame. Survivors are unfairly bludgeoned themselves for a lifetime for failing to do more to prevent the suicide. This is hard, messy stuff. We must enter into the survivor's unique pain and walk with them where they are as they are. Above all, point them to Jesus. In all things, point them to Jesus. Jesus looked on people's pain with the deepest compassion. He wept over death and died to destroy sin, despair, brokenness, and pain. Point grieving people to the God who's died for them, the God who knows our suffering intimately. Our crucified and resurrected God understands the pain of even the most complex, unimaginable losses. I don't have all the answers, and it's been my experience that most grieving people don't really want answers anyway. They do, however, need a whole lot more than you and I can possibly give to them. They need something that only God can give: grace, healing, peace, hope, love, and redemption. Only God can give that to them. Healing the brokenhearted. We must continue to pray, parents and teens who are listening. We must continue to pray. Ministers can and must walk with suffering people, showing empathy and deep compassion. But it's Jesus who heals the broken heart. Point them to Jesus. Patiently, persistently, and compassionately remind them that Jesus is with them. Help them see that Christ's suffering reveals to us a God who is not just distant from our pain, but enters into pain with us. Our God can be trusted to heal and deliver. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit in Psalms 34:18.